Hey friends, Adam from Mission Youth here, and we're in week 2 of our series Goals, where we're talking about, goals. I mean, it's right there in the name. Do I really need to spell it out for you? We spent a lot of time thinking of a catchy name for this series, didn't we? But we're not talking about just any goals here. We're talking about God-sized goals. Last week, Thomas introduced us and helped us narrow down on some God-sized goals in our life. And that's great. However, now it may seem a little overwhelming that you look back on what you wrote down. And while it's good to have God-sized goals in our lives, the question begs to be asked, what do we do next? Maybe if we're honest, we feel a little stuck. We have this goal in front of us and we feel like God is calling us to it, but what do I do now? I think most people feel this way when a big task is ahead of them. Some people might give the advice to just get to work, start making plans and making this goal become a reality. However, others may be on the other end, they may give the advice, just pray and wait patiently for God to reveal what it is you're supposed to do. And while prayer is vitally important to God-sized goals, do not hear me say otherwise. I mean, even Nehemiah spent months in prayer about his endeavor. So often we get stuck in this endless prayer loop and we never actually get to accomplishing our goals. So again, we ask, what do we do? Like Thomas showed us last week, start praying and continue praying throughout the entire process. But I believe the story of Nehemiah shows us there are things we can be doing while we're praying. Let's read Nehemiah 2, 1-8 together. Early the following spring in the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, I was serving the king his wine. I'd never before appeared sad in his presence, so the king asked me, "Why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled." Then I was terrified, but I replied, "Long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire." The king asked, "Well, how can I help you?" With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied, "If it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried." The king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked, "How long will you be gone? When will you return?" After I told him how long I would be gone, the king agreed to my request. I also said to the king, "If it please the king, let me have letters addressed to the governors of the province west of the Euphrates River, instructing them to let me travel safely through their territories on my way to Judah. And please give me a letter addressed to Asaph, the manager of the king's forest, instructing him to give me timber. I will need it to make beams for the gates of the temple fortress, for the city walls, and for a house for myself." And the king granted these requests because the gracious hand of God was on me. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why are we reading these boring details? And guys, I get it. At first glance, they don't seem all that exciting. But it's in these details that we get a good look at what was happening those months between Nehemiah's first conviction to rebuild the wall and the interaction he has with the king. First of all, and this cannot be repeated enough, pray. And when you're sick of praying about it, keep praying. And when you think you're done praying and ready to start working, pray more. However, in these verses, we discover that Nehemiah hadn't just been praying and casually planning. He had actually been preparing in great detail about how to go about accomplishing this task. When the king asked Nehemiah why he looked so sad, Nehemiah, because of his planning, had an answer prepared. And when the king asked Nehemiah what he wanted, because of his planning, he was able to immediately respond with requests. And when the king wanted to know how long Nehemiah's journey would take, Nehemiah, having done the preparation, had a timeline prepared for his journey. And when the king responded positively to Nehemiah's desires and wishes, because Nehemiah had been preparing and he had plans, he also had a list of items that he would need. Guys, throughout this process, Nehemiah continued to talk to God in prayer, but didn't just sit on his hands and wait for God to do all the work. He used the strategic mind God gave him to plan and prepare while he waited for the right opportunity to put it into action. And then, when that opportunity came, he was able to jump into action because of the preparations and plans that he had. However, God wasn't done yet. You see, further on down in the chapter, we see that after Nehemiah makes it to Jerusalem, and even after he takes time to survey the destroyed wall, he knew that he was going to need help. So he approached the priests, the nobles, the officials, and other people in the administration there. He shared with them the plan God had given him, the help the king had been so far, and how God was at work throughout the entire process. And then we see the response in verse 18 of chapter 2, where they replied at once, "Yes, let's rebuild the wall." So they began the good work. Yes, guys, God gave this huge task to Nehemiah. And yes, Nehemiah had access to God through prayer. Nehemiah had God-given talents, abilities, and passions. He had resources, opportunities, and connections to get this task accomplished. However, it would have taken him years to build this wall on his own. And so, on top of all that God had already given Nehemiah, God gave him other people to help as well. And it seems as if God had already been working in their lives to allow them to say yes immediately, at once, as the scripture says, to say yes to this huge request. Guys, the awesome thing about this story is that the same is true for us as well. In our God-sized goals, we have access to God through prayer and should be continually praying about these goals and how God wants to lead us. We have God-given talents, abilities, and passions. We have or will have in the future the resources needed and opportunities and connections from God that will allow us to accomplish what God has called us to. And God has surrounded us with people to join us in completing this task that God has called us to. But He has not called us to it alone. In every goal you've undertaken, God was at work in your life. He gave you the mind to strategize. He gave you the people to help, and He gave you the skills and resources to use to accomplish these goals. And that is true for future goals as well. Get that goal God has laid on your heart back in your mind. You got it? Because whatever it is, God has supplied you or will supply you through prayer and planning exactly what you need. What are some of those things that He'll provide us? Well, guys, here I have my God-sized goal. And it's going to end up looking a lot like Nehemiah's wall that he built. I have this goal, but obviously it hasn't advanced beyond a dream. I haven't done any planning. But thinking back to the story of Nehemiah, we know that God designed you, just like God designed Nehemiah, with everything you need to accomplish the goals God has put in your heart. First off, guys, you've got, you. When God gives you a God-sized goal, ask, what do I bring to the table? How can I contribute with what I already have? Well, first of all, you all have a mind that can think, plan, and strategize. That's key. But you also maybe have some skills that God has already given you and you've already built up that can use in this scenario. Or maybe there's a specific experience in your life that will bring wisdom, or you have some knowledge that will help you. Or maybe it's just simple God-given interests or even some passions that will help you build upon this goal. I would encourage you to take time to identify these things and use them for the glory of God. However, you can see our goal still isn't complete because God has also given you others. Just like Nehemiah discovered, most God-sized goals can't be achieved alone. There's a lot we can accomplish on our own, but if we want to make a lasting change, we're going to need other people. And so when God gives you a God-sized goal, ask, who can I work with? You see, you have friends and family that you can rely on to help you in these times. You have so many people around you that can help, and sometimes working with people is hard, but God still uses them, right? Maybe you have some trusted adults like a coach or a teacher or another mentor. You have access to knowledge from a bunch of different experts through books and videos and the internet. I mean, come on. YouTube, right? You have access to influential people who can help make things happen. Maybe that's contacting them on social media and getting them to support what you're doing. But you also have so many other people in your life that can help you in these tasks. Sometimes the people who end up making the biggest impact are the people we least expect. And that's why prayer is so vitally important. But we're still not done, because on top of that, God has also given us different things that can help. Just like Nehemiah needed transportation, wood, letters, and the king's blessing, you're probably going to need some things to help you accomplish your God-sized goals. So when God gives you that goal, ask, what do I need? And where can I get it? Everyone's God-sized goal will need different things. But maybe for you, it's simple. You just need some cash, right? You need some cash to get this goal going, or other supplies or tools that you'll need in accomplishing this. You'll need an audience. You'll need people who will back you and support you in this. Maybe it's you need a specific location for this to happen, or a platform to use in order to make awareness of what's going on, and just a bunch of different opportunities to see your goal accomplished. But most importantly, guys, above everything else, you've got God. Whether your goal is an everyday, you-sized goal or a once-in-a-lifetime God-sized goal, God is with you just like God was with Nehemiah. And like Nehemiah, God probably isn't going to give you a step-by-step plan for achieving your God-sized goals. But that's okay. You don't need one because you already have everything you need. Like Nehemiah, you are designed for God-sized goals. You've got the bricks, guys. Now, what are you going to build?